First, I knew the news headlines. And the news headlines are interesting and funny and worth, kind of enjoying for their own sake. But it wasn't until I met Lucian in person, like super briefly, I saw him speaking, that I started to understand that there was more to the organization and to the movement than kind of these pranks that were getting so much attention. So that was kind of when I started to really want to look more into it.
Penny came up to me after having learned some things about the Satanic Temple, which was rather unique from the pitches I would get. We would get a lot of insulting pitches for people who want to do reality-style shows or whatever else that we just weren't interested in at all. And at the point Penny had approached me, I was pretty certain I didn't want any documentary work done about us at all, but I really liked her previous work, and I really liked her understanding of the issues that we really wanted to bring to people's attention. So I thought she was a good person to kind of explore those topics in a cinematic form. Most people seem to have this impression of us that we were simply media hungry and that we were really pranking or trolling and having otherwise a really great time doing what we were doing. Penny seemed to understand that we really did have a deep passion for the issues we were confronting with everything that we do. And a lot of us, including myself, aren't terribly eager to be on camera or interviewed for its own sake.
Yeah, I can vouch for that. Lucian does not like doing interviews or like being on camera at all, which was very interesting. I knew that right away about him, and it was so against the assumption that I had going into it. It made me more interested. Well, the first Satanic Temple action that I heard of was definitely the Baphomet campaign in Oklahoma, when they were fundraising to make this 8.5-foot tall bronze, goat-headed deity called Baphomet, and and I thought it was brilliant. Like many people who saw that story and those headlines and that campaign, was really made me smile. It made me think, and I thought it was really smart. Yeah.
The theocrats in our government now are fond of opening up public forums to kind of preserve religious expression, as they'll say, but really what they're fighting for is one viewpoint having exclusive privilege on the public grounds, and they don't expect another viewpoint to assert the right to equal access. So in Oklahoma, when they said they wanted to put up a Ten Commandments monument, they were avoiding an Establishment Clause issue by saying they were opening these public grounds to private expressions of religious belief. And it was one of the state legislators who donated a Ten Commandments monument, saying that this was private speech on the public grounds, so it wasn't government endorsed. Well, if that was the case, then they opened the grounds up to other private donations of religious expression as well, and that's why we made the Baphomet monument.
I guess one of the things that is very important people understand is that the argument of the film is not like, look how normal these people are. They're just like you and me. In fact, Satanists are not trying to be normal, and they don't want to be.
Yeah.
So they are expressing their religion and their identity in a way that is very clearly important to them and deserves the same respect as any other kind of religious expression.
That was kind of another reason why I felt Penny would be good to do a documentary with us. She seemed to understand that we weren't interested in being humanized, and a lot of pitches that came our way were eager to express to us that they just wanted to humanize us to people, to show people that we were normal, and we really don't care if people see us that way, so long as they judge us for what we actually do rather than making up these kinds of crimes associated with us. But otherwise, if people don't agree with our lifestyles, or if people don't agree with people's sexual orientation or whatever else, we have no apology for that and don't think anybody should apologize for who they are.
One of the reasons that I wanted to make this film was that I personally related a lot to the Satanists and their mission, not because I'm a Satanist or because I'm particularly engaged in a church-state battle of my own, more that I feel a kinship with people who choose to do the difficult work of being heretics. Society needs skeptics, and it needs outsiders to stand up for themselves and to fight against the dominant ideas. We need that. That's really healthy to have that. And so I really appreciated the role that they were taking on in this particular cultural context. And I related to it personally because I feel a kinship to the kind of person who kind of doesn't mind if their point of view upsets you. Like, it's like not a problem for me if my point of view upsets somebody. But it is a difficult thing to do. It does generate a lot of hate and animosity.
How do those themes around Satan and Satanism resonate right now?
For me, it seems kind of obvious that there's been a complete reversal in the roles of who's ostensibly the good guys and who are the bad guys. Right now, we have evangelical nationalists pushing a theocratic agenda in the United States and making great headway to take away people's reproductive rights, endorse corporal punishment in schools, spread pseudoscience or otherwise reject a scientific point of view in really undermining liberal democracy. So at this point, there seems to be an apparent intuitive grasp of what Satan can mean in a heroic context. And I think you see that vindicated in the film when you see how quickly we've grown and how much that kind of iconography has resonated with people. They instantly seem to grasp it. Some people don't, of course, and object to it outright, but we have seen that, it speaks to people in ways that we could have never predicted from the start.
The main challenge in figuring out how to structure the story of the film is simply that the Satanic Temple is doing so much. A lot of their activities that were really important and interesting didn't make it into the film. 95 minutes is not that long, especially because we wanted to make sure we covered the beginning. Like, we wanted this to feel like this is the origin story of the Satanic Temple. And we wanted to leave it feeling very much like this is not the end of the story. So it was difficult to leave a lot of the really amazing work they do out. And it was also a little bit difficult to predict what was going to happen. I mean, there was just a lot of activity, and we were chasing, different chapters around the country doing really exciting things in their local communities and, national campaigns. And there was just a lot to sort of navigate. But, we just tried to keep true to like what would be like the best starting point for an average audience member. And then with that in mind, how can we make sure we're not doing a disservice to the more informed Satanist who watches the film? And I don't want them to feel like their intelligence is being insulted. So finding the balance, with the uninitiated, and then also wanting to be sure that Satanists would like it too, was, I think, pretty hard. I think we did a good job, but it was difficult.
Since the start of the Trump administration, there's been even more pushback against what you do?
Yeah, but there's been also that kind of concurrent understanding of a need for the kind of activities that the Satanic Temple are doing. Within hours of Trump being declared president, our membership numbers really spiked. And if we looked at the metrics for our website and other kind of web activity, it was like a straight line upward on election night, because people realized that this was, if they viewed it as a joke before, it wasn't a joke anymore, and that the rise of theocracy was very real.
Yeah, a lot of people don't understand just how big of a part the evangelical rights vote played in the election of Donald Trump. And we leave this out of the film because, frankly, we didn't want to look at his face. But, it's sort of in the world around us, right? Like, as much as Donald Trump himself is certainly not a believer in anything, the evangelical right really did a lot of work to elect him. And so, and he's repaid them in various ways. And so I feel like the work the Satanic Temple is doing is particularly resonant now. I also think that we're in such dark political times that people who maybe typically wouldn't care what the Satanists have to say might be a little more open-minded in their desperation for answers.
But the theocratic right has been emboldened by the election of Donald Trump. And as soon as he was elected, you could see these kinds of bills against abortion being pushed to be passed in states like Texas and Ohio against, fetal heartbeat bans as soon as the fetus starts a heartbeat. They were saying that's about 6 weeks. Sometimes women don't even know they're pregnant at that point, trying to ban abortions outright, and pushing other kind of theocratic agendas nationwide. And there's a very centralized, well-organized, well-financed force trying to undermine the very spirit of the United States Constitution and give exclusive privilege to one religious viewpoint And we're really a grassroots movement without any of that financing and without any of that networking yet. And we're making great strides just because the law really is on our side, at least for now.
Do you see anything satanic about Trump?
No, we're not mindless agents of chaos. And when you look at Trump, he is absolutely mindless. That man is about as stupid as they could possibly get. He's not qualified to work a stock boy job at a grocery store. He's completely unaware of his failings, right? So there's no drive for knowledge there, and there's no real appeal to scientific fact upon which he bases his beliefs, which is something we strive to do every day. And it's not that we're just looking for disorder, chaos, and to undermine Western civilization. In fact, we're trying to really endorse for Enlightenment values, bringing reason and respect for science into bettering the human condition. And that has nothing to do with Trump's agenda.
Planning any big, stunts or sort of like ironic events or anything going forward that, we may hear about before long?
Well, we're actually researching now the possibility of opening up a protected reproductive rights clinic. And we're searching different states in which we could do that. And we want to move into lobbying and model legislation and openly do that in the name of a satanic lobby. And I think a lot of people will think up front that there's no way we can make any headway, but people thought that when we started doing anything we were doing. And I think we're just going to keep pressing forward and not taking into account, as we always have, not the way people respond when they hear Satanist. I mean, we're just going to show them who we are by what we do, and they can accept it or reject it.
I mean, everyone seems to have a very strong opinion about Satanism, even though nobody knows anything about it. The good news is people have a response to the title, Hail Satan. And the bad news is they have a response to the title or to the topic. My name is Penny Lane, and I'm the director of Hail Satan, which is premiering at the 2019 Sundance Film Festival in the U.S. documentary competition. Hail Satan is about the Satanic Temple, which is just a few years old, but already one of the most controversial and confusing religious movements that the United States has ever seen. I like stories where the hook is apparent, but you also realize throughout the course of the story that you were wrong about what the hook was. Even people that are not particularly religious, like myself, we still think we know what Satanism is or what a Satanist is. And it turns out that most of those ideas are completely mythological. They're coming out of the 1980s and 90s from the Satanic Panic. I thought it was really interesting that there were so many misconceptions from the get-go about what modern Satanism actually is and means to the people who call themselves Satanists. Most people don't go past the first layer of like, haha, isn't this funny, kind of like a trolly, jokey thing. And in fact, what they're doing is really serious, and they take it really seriously. It was a tremendous responsibility to be given the kind of exclusive access we were given. I was very conscious from the beginning that this film would probably function as a kind of canonical text about this movement for some time into the future.